All right, let's talk about that dreaded check engine light. If you're a Jeep owner and you've been staring at the code P0426, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to crack this code together and figure out how to get you back on the road. So you see that glowing light, and your heart kind of sinks, right? But hey, it doesn't have to mean a huge bill or a massive headache. Your Jeep is just trying to tell you something, and we're here to translate. Because, ignoring it can definitely lead to bigger problems with your exhaust system down the line, and nobody wants that. So, what exactly is P0426? Well, in plain English, it means your Jeep's brain, that's the powertrain control module, or PCM, it's getting a weird, or maybe no, signal from a really important temperature sensor in your exhaust. It's basically a communication breakdown. All right, to solve this mystery, we gotta understand the crime scene. So let's dive into how this whole system works. We'll map it out and pinpoint exactly where that breakdown is happening. Let's start with the big boss, the PCM. Seriously, just think of it as your Jeep's brain. It's constantly taking in data from sensors all over your vehicle to make sure everything's running just right. And when one of those sensors sends a bad signal, or, no signal at all, the PCM throws up that check engine light to get your attention. Okay, so check this out. This shows you the whole journey your exhaust takes. It starts in the engine, then it flows through something called the diesel oxidation catalyst. That part helps clean the gas. And right after that, it passes our key player, the catalyst temperature sensor. That sensor's reading is absolutely vital before the exhaust hits the diesel particulate filter, which is there to trap soot. So that temperature reading is how the PCM knows your emission system is doing its job correctly. Okay, so the scene is set. We know we're getting a bad signal from that temperature sensor. But why? It's time to line up the usual suspects. And here they are, our main suspects on the investigation board. We've basically got 4 possibilities: a faulty sensor, some bad wiring, a malfunctioning PCM, or maybe a sensor that's just sending a signal that's totally out of whack. In pretty much every investigation, there's a prime suspect. And in this case, well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming. It almost always points to one thing in particular. Yep, suspect number 1 is a faulty exhaust gas temperature sensor. Think about it. This little guy lives in a really harsh environment with extreme heat, and like any part, it can just wear out over time. A lot of the time, replacing it is the direct fix for this code. But what if it's not the sensor? A good detective always follows every lead, right? So let's move on and check out the other possibilities, just in case. So if the sensor itself checks out, the problem might just be in the wiring. It's like a cut phone line, If the wires are damaged or frayed or maybe just disconnected, that signal simply can't get through to the PCM. And here's the good news, right? A lot of the time, you can spot this yourself with a good old-fashioned visual check. Just follow the wiring harness from the sensor and look for anything obvious. Any breaks, any sections that might have gotten burnt by hot exhaust parts, or even connectors that have just wiggled loose. Sometimes the fix is really that simple. Okay, and now for our long-shot suspect, the one that's rare, but it happens. The brain itself. It's not common at all, but the powertrain control module can fail, and if it does, it can't correctly read the sensor's signal, even if the sensor and the wiring are perfectly fine. This is usually the very last thing you'd check. All right, so we've walked through the system, we've identified all the suspects, and we've looked at the clues. Now, let's bring it all together, close this case, and figure out what you should do next. And really, this is the bottom line. Look at this. A faulty sensor is by far the #1 reason you're seeing that P0426 code. As this chart shows, it's the lion's share of the problem. Damaged wiring is a distant second. And those other potential causes, they're much, much rarer. So this kind of lays out your choice, right? What's your next move? On one hand, you've got some potential DIY fixes. You can definitely start with a visual inspection of the wiring. And if that sensor is easy to get to, you might even be able to replace it yourself. But for anything more complex, like deeper diagnostics, or especially if you think it might be the PCM, it's probably time to call a pro. So there you have it. You've cracked the code. You know what that light is trying to tell you. You know the most likely suspects, and you know what to do about it. So the only question left is, what's your next move to get that Jeep fixed and back on the road where it belongs?